We're going to start with our with volunteers, and I printed out the instructions that I gave you just to make sure you had it with you. And any questions before we get started? Everybody's pretty much ready to go? Okay. So Simone kindly volunteered to go first. So Simone's up. So please give her your...
Okay. I'm focusing on mental health in Bhutan. So when people hear like health, like across the globe, they usually think of like large epidemics of dangerous diseases or like what kind of health care is provided for their citizens. But like a really big issue that doesn't get enough attention is mental health. Mental health is rising across the globe, and getting the treatment for it is really difficult. A term that comes up within my research a lot was global mental health, and it's having international perspective on different aspects of mental health and learning from one another to make the world a better place. So specifically, I looked into how did Bhutan incorporate modern mental health teachings into their traditional Bhutanese society. So in 2002 is when Bhutan was first introduced into modern psychiatry by Dr. Dorji, who was Bhutan's first psychiatrist. He created a pilot program that was designed for a smooth transition of such a large idea, such as modern psychiatry, into such an isolated country. The first thing he did was he created focus groups with community leaders, healers, and health providers, and they used the best international practices that taught the community how to identify mental illnesses. There was 4 goals of the pilot program, and it was to introduce modern health practices into the traditional Bhutanese society, mobilize community support to identify and to treat severely mental ill personnel, provide a platform for traditional healers and modern health workers to work together, and to train primary health workers to diagnose and to treat mental disorders within the community. The pilot program was a success and is now in 17 districts within Bhutan, but one of the main issues with the mental health programs is the funding. Out of the total expenses that the government gives to all healthcare in the country, only roughly 1% of the financial support is directed towards the mental health programs. So one of my sources, which was WHO, which is World Health Organization, there's a journal quote from this journal article from Southeast Asia Journal of Public Health, and it says, Royal Government of Bhutan pursues and promotes a policy of providing well-integrated, equitable, cost-effective, and balanced health services consisting of preventative, primitive, curative, and reliability programs through its primary health systems. And I included this quote because it kind of shows the goals that Bhutan has for their healthcare. But as I did more research, it's really focused on healthcare, but very little on mental health. So the little mental health services that they provide, their mental health care is integrated with PHC, which is their primary health care. And that provides the essential mental health care to their patients in their homes and in their community. Okay, so this is the 4-tier system that they, like the health services. So it's like you have your basic health units which are in the communities, and then it goes to the district hospitals, which are like the ones that are in the 17 units. And then if it's like more severe that the district hospitals can't keep care of, it's referred to the central regional referral hospitals or the eastern referral hospitals. And then if it really can't be taken care of there, it goes to the national referral hospitals. So the community mental health facilities, there's 63 community-based psychiatric units in the country with 100 beds per unit, and they're fully integrated with general health care services. None of the mental health, like another problem with like the funding, there's not enough funding to have trained physicians. So in none of the communities, their mental health facilities, there's no physicians. But all of them have psychiatric medicine, which are like the antidepressants, antipsychotics, and mood stabilizers. And there are no private mental health healthcare facilities available in the country. So another diagram. So this is kind of another thing from the WHO, and it's the situation in Bhutan and proposal for improvement. So it's like, here are the guidelines that they require, and then the situation in Bhutan, and then like their proposal for improvement. So like one of the guidelines is they require like to educate the public. But the problem in Bhutan about educating the public about the mental health, is that people's attitude towards mental illness are strongly influenced by traditional beliefs. So they're not fully like, woohoo, mental health, this new modernization into their community because they're just so focused more on their traditional ways. So then the proposal for improvement is to give priority in improving mental health literacy and awareness, and like start the mental health movement as a partnership between the patient, the family, and the professionals. So like using the community leaders and the healers with the modern physicians. So due to the rapid increase of the modernization and the influence from the outside world, it has caused a great deal of mental stress on the Bhutanese people. And from this stress, it triggered a lot of brain disorders, which are like high anxiety, panic disorder, and depression. So the government's plan is to use the proposal of improvement, the pilot program that was designed by Dr. Dorji, and the traditional Bhutanese teachings, and then intertwine them all to decrease the rise of mental health issue that is spreading across Bhutan. So like the main things that I learned from this my research is that introducing modern medicine into Bhutan is very difficult because they are so fragile compared to the outside world. In order to educate the Bhutanese people about the importance of mental health awareness, we need to do it within the Bhutanese culture and traditions and not the American way. Possible solutions is to educate and make more awareness about how important the issue of mental health is. And although these people have the highest gross national happiness, in order to keep it that way, we need to provide the necessary mental health care. And then another solution is they're in desperate need of financial help towards the mental health care units. So we need to fund and be able to give them more money so they could hire and train more physicians and get more proper medical equipment and more facilities in the communities. So although their modern health is really important, Bhutan needs to strive to keep their individuality and their traditions, because at the end of the day, that's what truly makes their people happy.
My name is Nicole, and I'm part of the culture group, and I'm going to be talking about Bhutan's languages, history of the language, and the written language. Can anyone guess how many dialects are spoken in Bhutan?
3.
4.
No.
27.
No.
42.
Nope.
15.
Close. Who said 15?
56.
Close.
15.
Oh, 50? No.
15.
15? Close.
17.
Close.
13. 18.
Close.
Higher or lower?
Higher.
18.
Close.
19.
19. Who said 19 first? Okay. What do you want? What candy do you want?
Hershey's.
Hershey's? Okay. I'm gonna toss that to you. Huh. Alright. Throughout the speech, I will ask questions to see if you are paying attention. If you answer correctly or get close to the answer, you will receive candy. Bhutan's top 3 languages. As I said before, there are 19 dialects spoken in Bhutan. The native/official language is Dzongkha. It is spoken natively in the west. The other 2 main languages are Shankalaka, and they're spoken by the Tashanglas, located in eastern Bhutan. And also the third is Latoshaka, located in southern Bhutan, spoken by the Bhutanese of Nepali origin. Other languages are Kengaka and Bamthakka. They are spoken in central Bhutan by the Kengkakpas and Bamthoks. Sherpas, Lepchas, and Tamkas languages are spoken in southern Bhutan, and they can also create their own dialect. English is also widely spoken in Bhutan. Some extinct languages are Mangka and Gundupaka. They are going extinct because these languages are popular with the older generations, but with English and the official language, Dzongkha, the languages are going extinct. Question time. Name one of the other languages spoken in Bhutan.
English.
English.
That was in the East. I remember that.
Okay, this might hit some people, but. Yes, English. All right. Dzongkha's language history. The language has been developed since the 17th century. It became the official language in 1979 by the Department of Education of Bhutan. To help the citizens learn the language, the country created a Dzongkha dictionary. It was made an official language to help preserve the traditions, culture, and strengthen the national identity of Bhutan. The written language. Dzongkha was written in the Tibetan alphabet. However, the main written language in Bhutan is Classical Tibetan. Also, officially, the official way of writing Dzongkha is with the Latin alphabet known as Roman Dzongkha. Speaking and tone system of Dzongkha. Dzongkha has a two-tone system. A low tone is normally used when speaking. The modification of tones in speaking depends on prefixes, head letters, and subjoined with root letters. They're very interesting. They have their way of writing. The head letters are all like this. They have stuff on top, and then the root letter is with on my next slide. So, question time. Who wants Skittles? The language Dzongkha has a blank tone system.
2.
Yes. Skittles for her. Come on, guys. You didn't want to answer? You guys didn't want Skittles? Darn. Speaking/tone system. Continue. There are 30 initial consonants, 5 initial consonant clusters, 10 vowels, and 10 diphthongs defined. Consonant clusters mostly form by combinations with the R sound. Interesting. Some suffixes are not pronounced, such as D, S, and double H. Some key issues that I found from the chapter I picked, which was chapter 6, was how can culture contact and marketing of culture be regulated to promote and preserve cultural diversity? I picked this because it relates to the problem of TV and internet use in Bhutan and how it affects Bhutan's culture and language. One way I believe it affects people in Bhutan is by changing their idea of women and how they look. According to the movie Bhutan, Taking the Middle Path of Happiness to Happiness, younger generations are changing their way of looking at women. Women before TV and internet were seen as strong working women who could raise kids and help in the farms and fields. Now, the image is slowly changing to skinny women dancing around in provocative dressings. Also, with new TV and internet channels and things, come new languages, and with that, the younger generation picks up on those languages, which in turn, they lose their official language and try to pick up on those languages thinking it's cool. A solution to that problem is to either, in my mind, take out internet and TV altogether, or if they cannot do that, ration the time they have on TV and internet. Say, once all the work is done and once all the homework's done, they can go watch, say, maybe 2 hours. So they doesn't get in the way of tradition and culture. I feel they should take it out because the traditions, culture, and languages could thrive. I spoke about the many different languages in Bhutan, the history of the language, the written language, and the key issues. Thank you for listening. Let's Shambe join.
Okay, hi guys, my name is Siglali Mendoza, and I'm in the culture group as Nicole and Carmen and Alex. And I'm doing dance and music. Okay, so one of the big dance that they have in Bhutan, it's called the Chan dance. It's usually danced with the masks and all sorts of like crazy costumes. And it's performed in the Bhutanese festivals. The dance is accompanied. I can't say this right now. Okay, well, the music for this dance is played by the monks, and the traditional Tibetan instruments. The dance often offers moral instructions relating to compassion for sentimental beings and are held to bring merit to all who perceive them. This dance is also like considered a meditation and offering to the gods. I have this little clip. To show you guys. It's like a minute. That's the dance. I don't know if you guys can see it. So it's cool. So that was a little clip of their dance. And what's really interesting about their dance is not everyone can volunteer to dance, be a part of this dance. Only men and monks can perform this, as well as some students that are participating in the dance, like this dance program they have. Okay, so the Bhutanese music. Its intellectual part in its culture and plays a leading role in transmitting social values. Traditional Bhutanese music includes a set of Okay. Traditional Bhutanese music includes a spectrum of subgenres ranging from folk to religious song and music. These are some of the instruments: the lingam, a type of flute indigenous to the Bhutan. So you guys get to see this cool picture. Okay. And the drameen, a traditional Himalayan folk music lute with 7 strings used primarily as an accompaniment to sing the Drupal Buddhist culture and socially in Bhutan, as well as in the Tibet, Skin, and Himalayan West Bengal. It is used in religious festivals as the Tibetan Buddhism. Okay, and then this is the chewing, a type of fiddle played in Bhutan. And a fiddle is just another name for bowed string music instrument, which you can see there. Okay, and from a source from the documentary Taking the Middle Path to Happiness, what I found really interesting is how a man said that the world is fragile and humans are rare and endangered species. And this goes to show like how strong they feel about their culture. And since they brought like television in 1999, their like crime went up and stuff like that. So I think that's a big issue towards the Bhutanese culture. If they want to keep their Bhutanese culture strict, I feel like they need to keep teaching their young generations like the purpose and why Bhutan should keep their happiness rate up, because it makes them unique. And also, I really hope Bhutan can keep like its happiest rate go up, because it's one of the rare countries. I mean, how many of you can say like without technology you can live perfectly fine? Like, can any of you guys say like, I can totally go out like a year without technology? Yeah?
Yeah.
How many can say yes? Just 1, 2, 3. And the others can't. Why do you think you can live without technology?
I feel like she usually works out and about doing stuff, and when I'm out doing stuff, I think I'm done in my house.
Okay, well, that's the end of my presentation, guys.
Hello, my name is Carmen, and I chose Chapter 6, which is the chapter about culture and how it's clashing with ancient cultures, or merging of different cultures, to be exact. The issue I'm covering is specifically the influence of TV and internet in Bhutan. Some topics specifically I will be covering are analyzing Bhutan's modernization efforts, TV's bad influence on their culture and the history with that, internet censorship within Bhutan, and media whitewashing or beauty standards for women. So I will be talking about that. First, I will be talking about the modernization of Bhutan. Bhutan sped up its modernization efforts 50 years ago, so that would be about 1960. According to this article called Changing the Face of Bhutan by Arthur Lubo, he talked about basically the specifics of how Bhutan started to modernize in the 1960s. So they opened up their borders and they started building highways and increasing their hydroelectric plants, started making a business out of that and getting international trade with India because of that. Some say that Bhutan should not have opened up their borders because now that they're an open country, that means that there are what's it called? Other cultures imposing on their own culture. So some people think that's not a good idea, and I would agree with them. But if they want to modernize and become a more international nation, then they should open their borders. So how can we change this? Well, you can always influence their way of we can influence their way of thinking in a way of like, well, look at this culture that you have, look at what TV is doing to your nation, weigh the pros and cons pretty much. So that's one way we can influence that. Next, I'm going to talk about the increase of violence and abuse in Bhutan. So the TV was introduced in 1999 and internet was introduced in 2000. And because of that, due to a study that I found on the BBS radio station, which is the only radio station in Bhutan, and it airs only in Bhutan, they did a story about how domestic violence has increased from 2008 to 2012. And so basically, since this is the era of Bhutan with TV and internet, it's kind of not so much of a coincidence that violence has increased due to the introduction of TV. The other side of this issue, one might say that domestic violence happens all the time in history, but we can clearly see from the study that it has increased. And yeah. So how can we change this? Well, there is a new organization that has been formed in Bhutan called Renew. So it's just all caps, and they focus on women that have been abused by family members, specifically their husbands. And basically they try to convince them that the reasons why they're abused are not justified. They're not justified reasons. Just because you talked back to your husband does not mean you deserved to be abused. Just because you refused sex does not mean you deserve to be abused. So that's what Renew does. So maybe we can do something like this. Maybe add more organizations, international organizations to help women in countries to stand up to domestic violence. But obviously, we should also consider what kind of channels they get in Bhutan, and maybe that we should start restricting their flow into the country. Next, I'll be talking about TV, introducing feelings of dissatisfaction and desire. So, the traditional Buddhist values say that you need to resist desire and be satisfied with your life. Well, with advertising in TV, obviously that's the whole point of advertising, is they create desire for you to buy something, for you to be a certain way. And so, with the introduction of TV, women have started to feel dissatisfied about their body. So, where if it comes down to terms if they're too muscular, they're too dark, they're not what an ideal woman is supposed to be according to the kinds of TV channels that they get, like from, may it be Bollywood idols, American TV, football, whatever, like all sorts of stuff like that. So what can we do? We can push for the termination of ads, certain ads in Bhutan, or we can create an idea for Bhutanese women to stand up to these ideals, slowly like what America is doing. Yeah, I got this from the source of this book. It's a journal. It's called the Journal of Bhutan, and it was created by multiple authors, and I took this from an excerpt called Selling Desire and Dissatisfaction by Ross McDonald. Next, I will talk about internet censorship. So according to the U.S. Department of State website, the Public Bureau of Affairs, Bhutan mostly has censorship-free internet, but it is enforced by the government that they censor all pornography sites. But I found that most censorship in the internet is done by citizens of Bhutan rather than enforced by the government. So it's all out of this sort of free will choice that they don't want to see certain websites. One alternate point would be, shouldn't Bhutanese people ban recreational use of internet altogether if they know what kinds of things are held in the internet and it squashes their culture? Or you can just realize that Bhutanese people have choice in how they run their country. So what can we do? Well, we can just hope that Bhutan uses their internet wisely. And yeah. One of the last things I'll be talking about is media whitewashing and its, I already talked about this, its effects on women. Typical Bhutanese woman is strong, tan, and is able to work in the fields and the house. I got this source from Kinley Rinchen, also from the Journal of Bhutan Studies, from a different excerpt called Media and Public Culture, Media Whitewashing. TV is slowly diminishing Bhutan's traditional culture, and a lot of the older generation is slowly trying to hold on to their culture, and a lot of them are actually going against the TV. But that's not the same with the younger cultures. A lot of them, as you could see from the Travelers and Musicians movie, the main character was he wanted to go to America, and he was very into the whole culture. But he didn't realize what he had there in Bhutan already. So that is one sort of war that's going on right now. And another, just again, we can just stop our flow of ads from just going in there, going to the country. So my conclusion is that Bhutan's culture is being threatened by international TV and internet. Whether it be from us or India, China, wherever it's coming from, it's being threatened. The younger generation is more accepting of TV, but if we get rid of TV, obviously that idea is still going to be there. It's still going to linger, but hopefully throughout the years it will die down and they will go back to their beautiful culture. So yeah, basically because of TV, violence increased, domestic, like even bar fights, whatever, alcoholism, addiction, all sorts of terrible things. And it's creating a rift between traditionalists and the younger generation. And so the best solution is definitely to either restrict TV or remove it entirely from Bhutan. Thank you.
Am I good? So I'm also in the health group with Simone, and we're looking into health in Bhutan. And the chapter from Global Issues we're looking into is global health. So I'm mainly going to be talking about the healthcare system that Bhutan has, the improvements that they've made over the years, and the improvements that are still to be made. So first, Bhutan's health system. They have a free healthcare system because their government really cares about their citizens. So they pay for everything, their treatments, the vaccines. And in a study that I found, it showed a survey of what the Bhutanese citizens rated, what made them the most happy. And the fourth most common answer was their health made them the most happy. So that's a huge part of their gross national happiness over gross domestic product. Dr. Phil Rasori came in and talked to us. Do you guys remember that? Danny's friend. He was talking to us about how if there's a very severe procedure that they need to be done, they'll fly their citizens out to India or another country so they can have it done because they don't have that high of technology to do it for them in Bhutan yet. Because they do that because they only really have clean water, they have basic treatments, basic procedures, small surgeries they can do, but nothing huge or unique things. Here's a YouTube clip of a hospital in Bhutan, just so you can see what it looks like compared to our hospitals.
This is located in the mountains, and we visited this hospital to get an impression. The first impression was that it was a quite empty hospital. Many of the wards were totally empty. Here we show you the ward for the children. But the same picture was seen in the male ward. And afterwards we went into the minor operation theater. And here you find a short impression of what we saw in the hospital of Bhutan.
So this is where they do minor procedures and surgeries. So just keep that in mind compared to how our surgery room looks like. So now you guys can see what the hospitals there look like. And you guys know that's obviously not how our hospitals are here because we're a first world country, and theirs are a lot different. They like obviously need a lot more advancements, but they have made improvements over the years. Since they've wanted to get more modernized with technology, they began a telematics program, which is like, does anyone know what an advice nurse is? Like if you call like Kaiser or like John Muir, you can like speak to an advice nurse and tell them your symptoms, and they'll tell you if like you need to come in or if you're fine. You know what I'm talking about, kind of. So they like are starting that so they can have communication, and they can also communicate with other doctors if they have like questions about cases they're not sure about, rather than just making them come in if they don't even have to come in. And it's also really hard because, as we know, Bhutan's a really rural area and people live in villages high in the mountains, and it's hard to like get to the hospitals. But another improvement they've made was their life expectancy. In the 1990s, their life expectancy was only 32, and in 2012 they increased it to 68. So we can see how like technology and the development and modernization helped that. Even though they have improvements, there's still like much that they need to do. One thing I think would be good for is to educate the people, especially in the rural areas, so they don't have to drive the whole way, or they don't drive, so they have to walk all the way to the hospitals in case there's like nothing that needs to be done. So they can educate for like minor injuries, for illnesses that they could like use home remedies for or something, or even like educate them on like sanitization, so like clean water, like how to infect your scars or whatever. And then another improvement they could make is an emergency care system, because I don't think they have like ambulances or helicopters like we have to get to people. So maybe eventually they can like find out like a helicopter system they can use to go to the people in rural areas that need them, because they obviously can't get to the hospitals in time. And then I'm going to show you. You guys know what Bhutan, the shape looks like? It's kind of like this. Here's like the Himalayas over here. And these are like, people live in villages here, but all the hospitals are like right here. So like none of these people can really get to the hospitals, so that's why it's like really a big issue. And they have like, Simone was saying, the little health clinics all like throughout here, but like not as much up here, like in this, where like the mountain ranges are. So I couldn't really find anything about like an organization to help their medical system, but I think it's just really important to be aware of like what other countries are going through, because we don't really think about it here. So it's important to be aware that we are very fortunate living in the United States, and we like have access to healthcare systems whenever there are other countries like in need, like Bhutan. So today I told you guys about Bhutan's healthcare systems, the improvements that they've made, and the improvements that they still could make. Hope you guys got some insight to what Bhutan's health system looks like.
Okay, so my name is Anna, and the topic I chose to speak about today is women in Bhutan. This topic is important because it raises awareness to the ongoing controversies of women's rights in the world today. So I'm a feminist, and being a feminist, I care a lot about how women are treated and perceived throughout the world. And in this particular country, women play a much different role than we think. In Bhutan, the government has encouraged greater participation of women in political and administrative life. Reflecting on the dominance of males in society, girls were outnumbered in school. Women in the 1900s were uneducated and only worked in low-pay labor jobs. So today, they're enforcing a lot more rules on school, and I think in the movie that we saw the guys getting to learn the different types of, special rituals and stuff like that, and we didn't see any of the girls learning that kind of stuff. And some of the things that like Sitwali said about the dancing, the men do all the dancing, the men do all the rituals. So they're really focusing on women and how they can get more involved in their culture. The government founded the National Women's Association of Bhutan in 1981 to improve the socio-economic status of women. This association claimed it would not push more pay for women because they claimed women enjoyed where they stood in society. So in the past, women were working hard labor jobs. They were they didn't really have like important jobs in government and in business, and they claimed that they enjoyed where they stood. So this association doesn't really enforce feminism as much as we do in America, as much as women getting more pay, but they definitely create a better society for women as a whole. And although women seem to have a very important role in Bhutan, there are some negative things that I found behind the scenes. So the main women's rights in Bhutan, the main one's trafficking. So there's a big problem with trafficking right now of women, sex trade and pornography in Bhutan. And I think the reason why this is happening is because of the media aspect that some of you guys were talking about. There's, since the media is like flourishing a little bit right now in Bhutan, I think they're kind of like open to see like the different cultures, and they're trying to Americanize themselves, and they think that these like ways of flaunting their bodies and putting themselves out there is the way that their culture should be. And so that's like a huge problem. The second problem is polygamy. The average male has 3 to 4 wives in Bhutan, and I think that that's kind of taking away from, you know, like their culture. Well, it's kind of a part of their culture, but it's kind of becoming an issue. Domestic violence, as we stated today earlier, is becoming a huge problem. I think it's also because of the media. They're getting to see violence in the world. Illiteracy. Women aren't really going to school, and they're not learning. They're kind of just working in the fields and working at home. Exploitation in work areas and gender-based discrimination and limited access to work. So, like I said before, women have a harder time than men finding jobs and making money for their families. The government is providing assistance to broken families to create awareness amongst women and the values of education and their rights in society. So I think the government is starting to see these problems, and they're really working hard to create a better society for women as far as these issues go. Women play a very important role in Bhutan, as I said, and by saying this, teenagers are getting married and having babies very young. I read a lot about it, and I think it's just they're not, like the health aspect, like we said, like they're not really flourished in that area, so they don't really have a great life expectancy like we do. So I think they're getting married early because of that reason. I think the average girl I read is like 14, and they already have kids by then, so their culture is a lot different in that aspect. And if they're having more babies and not getting enough education, there will be too many uneducated women to work jobs. So I believe that there is hope for women in Bhutan, but I think that education should really be key to a lot of these issues. Establishing some new laws and government regulations will provide women a safe environment that they deserve, and definitely will help their opportunity in their country. And despite these issues, I read that the gross national happiness states that Bhutan is the happiest country in the world. So a lot of these issues are kind of underground, and they're not really, I mean, we would have never thought that there was a huge trafficking problem in Bhutan. So they are a very happy country. In conclusion, Bhutanese women play a very significant role. Women were seen as hardworking labor workers, but now Bhutanese women are looked at as house moms, providing for their family, and hopefully their culture continues to flourish. And one thing I wanted to share is my aunt got to travel to Bhutan and to the surrounding countries, and she brought me back this necklace. And I mean, I would never wear it anywhere but here because it's huge, but it has a lot of different symbols. And I think she said this symbol on it means the path of life. So I think it's like they really care about their life and their happiness and their culture. And this is like what they would wear during the day. Any questions?
All right. My name is Alex Christodoulou, and the topic I'm going to be discussing today is water management in Bhutan. Water is one of, if not the most important resource a nation can have, and the way in which a government chooses to manage this resource is usually a pretty contentious issue, and not all places are great at it. For instance, a recent study by NASA shows that the state of California only has about a year's supply of water left. So you can expect the price of water to skyrocket in the next couple of years until the rain comes. So thanks, SoCal. Bhutan's water management, they also face some key issues, but quantity isn't one of them. The struggles they face are more along the lines of the lack of modernization, rival nations that can mess with their water supply, such as China and India, and the effects of global climate change. All right, climate. For its size, Bhutan has probably the most diverse climate on Earth. In the north, perpetual snow falls on the mountains of the Himalayas, and in the south, during the summer months, the monsoon season provides a lot of rain. It's more of a tropical climate. And despite having some disadvantages with their location, like a greater possibility for political disputes, they have some key advantages in terms of water supply. During the monsoon season, which lasts about from mid-June through September, they get about 60 to 90% of their rain. And the snow runoff from the mountains gives them a large amount of groundwater supply, which is very important to farmers. And farmers in Bhutan especially need water because rice is a very important crop there. It's the second most grown crop, and rice takes a lot of water to grow. Lack of modernization. So Bhutan's lack of development is a result of their attempts to preserve their culture, which is undoubtedly admirable, but on certain occasions it really limits them. For instance, the Himalayan rivers that flow through Bhutan have incredible potential for hydropower, but Bhutan isn't developed enough to take advantage of this. It would be very risky because any sort of economic backlash would be devastating to Bhutan. But if they took the risk and did try and develop some hydropower, the price of electricity in Bhutan would drop drastically. So it could be a risk worth taking, but I'm not sure. If their aim is to preserve their culture and still modernize, then this would be a smart step, but I'm not sure that that is their aim at the moment. Bhutan is an isolationist country, and they prefer to stay out of foreign affairs. But like I said earlier, their location sometimes makes that problematic. A perfect example of this is the Brahmaputra River. And as you can see here, it flows through 4 countries: China, Bhutan, India, and Bangladesh. And they all work together. They could share this water supply, and all of them could have a solid amount of water. But unfortunately, things don't run that smoothly in politics. And China is attempting to construct 3 dams on the Brahmaputra in addition to the Zhangmu Dam, which already lies there. And this has really upset the people of northern India because they really rely on that water supply, and they would lose it if China did construct those dams. India already has a big problem with overpopulation, and they do not want to add water scarcity to that. So they're going to be desperate to stop the construction of those dams. And Bhutan lies in between the Brahmaputra and northern India. So if they aren't careful, India could sort of take over Bhutan like they did to Sikkim, and Bhutan could lose its identity as a nation. Despite the large quantities of water, Bhutan could still experience a shortage because, well, as you are already aware, Bhutan is a country that's extremely environmentally conscious, and their government stresses environmental conservation because they believe their beautiful environment provides happiness to the people. But even they cannot escape the clutches of climate change. The glaciers in the Himalayas are really retreating. In past years, like in past decades, 30s, 40s, 50s, these mountains would be just covered in snow, but because of the way things are progressing, it's not like that anymore. So the fear was that it would have a huge dent in Bhutan's water supply, but recent studies have shown that's not true, and that glacier melting isn't as big of a part of water supply as previously thought. Most of their water comes from monsoons, but it will have a huge impact on groundwater supply, and as I stated earlier, that's very important to farmers, so it's still a very key issue. Bhutan is a nation that doesn't usually find itself in the midst of conflict. Their peaceful mentality and dedication to the happiness of all beings within their borders creates an environment where tension is rare. Concerning the key issue of water management, the main focus seems to be how this small nation can better manage their water. Quantity isn't an issue at the moment, and the monsoons in the south and the runoff from the north creates a plentiful supply. Yet conflict could still lie on the horizon, with China and India keen to get a stranglehold on the Brahmaputra. But as of now, Bhutan seems to be doing all right, and as long as the conflicts at the Brahmaputra River is solved, their water management is okay. Thank you.
So my name is Yesenia, and I have Bhutan fighting global disease, just like Brahma and Simone. So Bhutan is a small nation. While it does have basic health care, like Brianna said, they only have basic health care. So for bigger procedures, they are flown out to like India and the expenses of Bhutan. But an issue that is dealt with in Bhutan is HIV awareness. So for HIV awareness, the fourth king created principles to fight against HIV and AIDS. So they called for all members of society to help prevent HIV and AIDS and provide health care and compassion to those infected. So instead of like shunning people that have HIV, they wanted people to be accepting and show some compassion toward them, because you can't help it sometimes. So in some way they help create awareness is they have some signs around Bhutan like these two. Let us promote safe sex by using condoms, or you and I together can fight the spread of HIV in Bhutan. So that kind of helps promote around the country what they birth control and in order to help STDs and HIV. So the first case of HIV was reported in 1993. And in Bhutan, there's only around 200 cases of HIV that have been detected in the total population, which is less than 7,000. So they have a pretty low number compared to other places, because they try to reach out to the people and create a program for it. So the monks help in order to remove the stigma of birth control and STDs. So in order to motivate people, the government had the monks who are respected go around the villages and help educate people and create awareness. So they would go around and probably teach people and then hand out some forms of birth control in order to help. So the plan of action was that the NSP, which is, let me think, I forgot. Well, anyways, this is the royal government. They want to help. Let me think. They want to create a supportive environment in order for people to come, not be afraid to have STDs or come forward with it in order to have a healthy country, because they want to keep everyone healthy. So this is their plan of action that the NSP aims to. This is from the document in which they released in order, stating out their plan in which they've had for STDs. So integrate STD and HIV prevention in the core activities of multi-sexual partners. Create a supportive environment that facilitates the application of programs and services and reduces stigma and discrimination toward women and men living with affected by HIV and AIDS, and improve the quality and coverage of the national response to HIVs, AIDs, and STIs. So not only by creating awareness for STDs, they're not just helping with that, they're also helping in maternal health and like passing out birth control. So little things like this kind of help make Bhutan one of the happiest countries of the world. Yeah.
Good. All right. So the particular subjects that I'm researching for our project are social media and politics in Bhutan. And well, the political views of Bhutan. Well, first of all, Bhutan has been a constitutional monarchy since July 18, 2008, and basically what that means is a form of governing where the powers of the monarch are restricted by the terms of the constitution, which means King Jigme Khesar Namgyal Wangchuck he's the head of state but can't override any of the the constitutional rules of the country. So that's probably why they maintain a high rate of gross national happiness, the acronym GNH. And exactly what GNH is, the actual definition is it's a global indicator of progress which measures both sustainable economy, social development while protecting the environment and culture. And a reason why Bhutan's gross national happiness is so high is because they have a 4-pillar system, which extended definition of what it is sustainable and equitable society, economic development, conservation of environment, protection and preservation of culture, and good governance. So they pretty much follow this, which is why they're the happiest country in the world. But since the entrance of social media, I feel like it's starting to diminish a little bit because people have more of a materialistic view on what they want, and it's not really a simplistic society as it used to be. And I feel like it's a negative, it's a negative thing for the country, because when you abandon cultural views in some simplistic society, it makes people I don't know how to explain it. It changes the status quo, which makes people more greedy and maybe want to overthrow the government and not agree with any views on what the king has to say. And okay, and so basically, with the introduction of the internet in 1999, it has made the country more selfish, rather than sticking to the ways of its old, being profitable through farming and whatnot. Now they want to be bigger industrial things, which are not necessarily possible. So it's also a problem. So I think social media is it's not beneficial to them, but I feel if they take it slow and make it beneficial to the country, slowly, and not try to jump into something that they can't be per se because they don't have enough money to provide for the country, then I feel it'd be more beneficial to just slowly ease into it rather than just jump into something bigger. So pretty straightforward, and yeah, that's pretty much the main topics I got. So yeah, thank you.
Alright, my name's Danny. Computer science major, and I'm partners with Liam and Jeremy. Jeremy's a political science major, and he's undeclared. So we did our topics are social media and politics. So it's kind of like, goes with it. Quick question, like what year did you guys first join social media? Like Facebook or Instagram, Twitter? Like, what age you guys get like your first social media site?
6th grade.
6th grade?
Yeah.
Like,
Middle 8th grade.
what was it? Was it MySpace or Facebook? MySpace. Okay. And then, why'd you guys get MySpace when you were that age? Why'd you get that social media site? Oh, your friends said. Okay. Well, basically, Liam covered like most of the stuff, and so did Carmen about like technology. Bhutan got technology like very late. They were like the last country in the world to get technology or TV, television, social media. It was in 1999. In 2000, they got the internet. So Bhutan is a country with like a very specific culture. They were late. They got their roads and everything are like not that great. They're I don't know, kind of like a country that likes to be themselves, and they're almost isolated from the world around the 1970s. So it's kind of like a huge deal, like being isolated from the whole world, because like they're so late behind with everything. And now they're barely joining the 21st century, and so Bhutan, it's like seeing how Bhutan's people live their lives with little support of the internet and social media. It is interesting to see how their culture grows and reacts to how much we have grown as a world with the technology we have today. Can Bhutan handle what is going on with the evolution of our technology and still keep their tradition and culture? And my opinion is, I don't know, because Bhutan's like a pretty small country, and they live their lives since like for hundreds of years, and seeing technology and the internet it's like a huge mind blown to them, I believe. And I don't know if I'm guessing in 20 years the culture and tradition will be going down the drain because of how they live the world. Like they're living the world now, in some cities and some towns have the internet and TV, and kids aren't going out as much and doing their traditions and cultures. They're just sitting down, playing video games, or watching TV. And like Carmen said, the more they watch television and the internet, they're spending time on it, the more the crime rates go up, because they see all what the movies are doing and how everyone's living their lives here in America or different countries, and they want to be just like us. And so the crime rates have gone up, and seeing all this crazy nonsense. And then talking about the politics, the king now the king rules Bhutan with all happiness. The first government came in 1616 with a man from Tibet. In 1907, I can't even pronounce the name, was the first king of Bhutan, and changed Bhutan for the better of the world and for the country. And Bhutan has been ruled by the same dynasty ever since then. And it was a monarchy for the longest time until 2008. It became a democracy. So now Bhutan's living the life in more happiness, and the guy who's ruling it is a happy guy. He's how to explain it? He's getting involved with the country by going to the traditions, helping the kids, going to the dances, being a happy guy to everyone, living the life how he wants and how they want. And he's a very smart guy. He went to college here in the United States, so he knows how our cultures are and how we live our lives, and he knows the difference between their culture and our culture. I'm gonna pass down there's a graph or a little map of the government of Bhutan and what's in it, state religion, judiciary, local government, executive and stuff. So I'm gonna pass that around, and then I'm gonna pass around this one's kind of blurry, but a monk using technology like a camera, and then over here a person in Bhutan using a tablet to take pictures. It's pretty interesting seeing how. Pictures, but it's pretty mind blowing seeing how a country like 15 years ago didn't know like anything like technology we're using now. Like they don't have this, they don't have a camera to do anything, and I don't know, they're a unique country, I believe, and I hope their tradition and culture can stay the same for like hundreds of more years instead of them like going down the drain and losing everything they earned and built. That's all I have.
So I wanted to start off with a quote by Sylvia Plath. I felt my lungs inflate with the onrush of scenery. Air, mountains, trees, people. I thought this is what it is to be happy. I thought this quote was kind of nice to begin, just because kind of Bhutan is always focused on like happiness in the environment, and those are like two major parts of Bhutan, and it kind of makes makes Bhutan Bhutan. So I chose Chapter 5, Protecting the Environment, which addresses water issues and different energy technologies. And I didn't really choose it because I was necessarily like interested in the water issues in Bhutan, but just because more I was like interested in how environmental issues impacted Bhutan's happiness. So the main water issue from my research, I know Alex said that there wasn't a lot of hydropower being used in Bhutan, but I actually found from my research that there is hydropower being used in Bhutan, and it currently actually, Bhutan receives 40% of its national revenue from hydropower plants, and like he was talking about, most of that comes from the Brahmaputra River, which is right here, and then Bhutan is like right here. So that's what I found. And then, so according to the documentation of the Worldview of Global Warming, the three major issues regarding hydropower in Bhutan that are kind of like connected with climate change as well is first glacial melting and monsoon changes, which causes siltation, which I don't know if you guys are familiar with it, but it's kind of like pollution of the water by different sediments, so like silt or clay. And then glacial lake outburst flooding, which is when a dam containing a glacial lake fails, and that can be from like erosion, water pressure, and then also like glaciers that break off and fall in the lake and displace like the water in the lake. And then lastly, an increase of evaporation, which leads to a loss of reservoir water. And then kind of back to global warming and glacial melting, a photojournalist by the name of Gary Brash interviewed many of the local residents in Bhutan, and they all reported, not all of them, but most of them reported like the snow on the hilltops there wasn't a lot of snow as much as they used to remember, and there's also an increase in rainfall and erosion. So those were kind of the negative effects of hydropower / climate change, but there's also some positive effects to hydropower, especially in Bhutan, according to the U.S. Geological Survey. One is that hydropower is a renewable energy resource, so it uses energy from the running water to produce electricity. And even though there are some negative effects to the environment, it definitely is more eco-friendly than, say, like a power plant that's derived from like gas or coal or oil. And then hydroelectricity also brings development to Bhutan. So with electricity, you start to develop the economy, and then you also have better access to healthcare and education. So hydropower definitely has its pros and cons. However, since Bhutan has such a fragile environment, and since it's so closely connected to its culture, I believe they should really like take time to consider all of the effects it has on the environment. And then to conclude, I have a statement from the National Environmental Commission leader, and he said that without like a stable environment, you really have no hydropower. So we can't really directly change environmental issues in Bhutan, but we can definitely like take steps to fight global warming by obviously reducing our fossil fuel emissions and spreading like world news to others. So yeah, that's it.